Hello, and welcome back to the Fae Banner Review, where we talk about the never-ending text found on modern-day weapon descriptions, although luckily this time around, it's a lot more digestible. Today, we have a brand new gladiator, mercenary, something in between banner featuring a bunch of units that fall into one of those categories. A pretty cool theme following from that of the tribe themes, and as per tradition, I will be using this coveted line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day to rank the brand new seasonal banner. Today's ranking will be based on how much restraint they have when it comes to their unit choices, but feel free to not hold anything back by subscribing to the channel for more content in your YouTube feed. Thanks, I appreciate it. First up, we have Masked Marth, which is really funny because they almost never touch this version of Lucina. I think the last time we had this was with Summer Mia back in Book 4, and that was because of the Tempest Trial connection, so it's funny to see them use it again here. It could have waited a bit longer though. Let's see. Masked Lucina comes with Disguise Lance, which is a slaying lance that inflicts speed and defense penalties, sabotage, and panic on the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of the target after using a rally or movement assist. It grants a bunch of stats during combat, upwards of 25 true damage and 15 true damage reduction based on bonus effect totals, an additional 15 true damage reduction if the foe triggers a special, and dual phase brave if she's either faster than the foe or she has Future Witness active, which she can get from her other PRF, Future Gaze, which is a swap Gale Force assist that grants Future Witness, dodge, and foe penalty doubler to herself and allies within 2 spaces of her and the target, and a special jump of 1 to herself and those allies. Welcome back, Ninja Lucina. Going from what's essentially Ninja Diamant 2 to Ninja Lucina 2 is pretty funny, but that's far from a bad thing in her case. At least on the power side of things. Ignoring her combat for a second, Future Witness is still a pretty solid status, but now she grants dodge and penalty doubler, which is really good, especially with her sabotage and panic debuffs. You'll end up getting a lot of stat swings just from that. Sabotage and panic are fantastic penalties together, and I wouldn't be surprised if this allowed a bunch of units to meet a lot more thresholds than they would have otherwise. And don't even get me started on her combat capabilities. It's pretty good, yeah. The amount of units that have the same plastered X true damage reduction, additional X true damage reduction is more than I am willing to count, but it's not a bad thing in the slightest, especially since she has Brave to back it up. She'll probably do pretty good work. That said, the support is what really sells it for me, especially since she needs a good amount of inheritables to really get her combat going, since she is missing a full kit. And speaking of which, Lucina Marth also comes with Gust, Perfect Attack Speed, and a brand new B-slot in Attack Speed Favor, which grants 6 attack and speed, empathy, and the 50% damage reduction piercing status to herself and target ally, as well as a special jump of 1. Any ally with empathy active gets 7 true damage during combat, and the unit themselves gets true damage based on the highest total of attack and speed bonuses between themselves and any ally with empathy active plus a flat 7, and they inflict -4 speed, defense, and res on the foe during combat. I really like this skill. I'm not sure what this upgrade's from, but it reminds me of Link 4 skills, and I feel as if those didn't really take off as much as they could have because it didn't really do enough in either support or combat. This skill just doubles down on every aspect to a significant degree, and it seems like a worthwhile skill to run for a lot of units because of it. It's especially nice that the restrictions are pretty lax, so even as a filler B-slot for support, or even throwing it on a unit who gives out team-wide empathy would be really sick because it means it's just always active, and it could be a lot more selfless. It's really hard to go wrong with a skill that gives out this much stuff. At least until they drop a newer, stronger version of the skill 2 months later. And other than that, that sure is Masked Maxina. It's pretty much just a newer Ninja Lucina to a T. I don't think there's anything she's really missing from that alt besides the Gale Force button, but it's not as if she doesn't have a billion other things going on in her kit. It's like 5 or 6 more things, I think. But yeah, Ninja Lucina even now is still pretty good, so she'll be pretty great just by proxy. That said, she really does want Legendary Diamant's fodder, but even without it, she'll probably be good on the basis of being an action economy unit. And speaking of which, next there's Crom, and yep, that sure is Crom alright. It's been a bit since we got a Crom alt, so I'm wondering if he'll bring something new to the table this time around. Nope. Let's see. Crom comes with Gladiator's Bow, which is a slaying bow that inflicts attack and defense penalties, exposure, Discord, and the null miracle penalty on closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of the target after using a rally or movement assist. It grants spectrum stats based on the total amount of active bonus and penalty effects active on Chrom, plus 10% of his attack and defense with no limit, lull attack and defense, upwards of 25 true damage based on total bonus effects, and player phase desperation. On top of a PRF assisting Conquering Fate, which is a reposition Gale Force assist that grants a special jump of 1 to himself and the target, copies all bonuses off the target onto himself and passes on any bonus he has to the target, inflicts isolation on Chrom, and grants Change of Fate to himself and the target, which grants Canto 2, Spectrum 5, and upwards of 15 true damage. You know, I probably would have been more surprised if he couldn't kill Legendary Black Knight with all of those stats and true damage he was getting. Where do I begin with this Chrom? Let me think. He's really strong. You know, despite being another version of something we've seen several times already, I actually like what this ult does because of the bonus transfer effect he has built into his kit. The ability to pass on bonuses to the target really has the potential to be absurd when paired with the right support and allies. Great example, you could give somebody like Summer Celica extra movement if Chrom has a movement bonus with something like Emblem Sigurd's Ring effect. Now you could constantly have a 7 range nuke at your disposal. Or how about giving extra movement to Brave Sharena? Now you could constantly have a 6 range nuke at your disposal. And you know, you could always copy Gala, but that's not really anything new. But it's still fun. Since there's no limitation on what he could pass around, I feel like there's going to be a lot of things that can be done with it that isn't just extra movement, hopefully. But that's still pretty good, and this is just the assist we're talking about. That's not even going into his combat capabilities. He kills Legendary Black Knight, so it's probably good, right? Like I said, I'd be surprised if he was really that bad in combat since he gets the same stat swing gimmick as Brave Chrom, but with more true damage and support tacked onto it. And that's not even counting Change of Fate, because of course we need a new status that grants 15 true damage and more stats. I really doubt he's going to struggle in a lot of areas because of it. You know, at least until the new monthly armor drops and tanks everything in the game again. Chrom also comes with Blazing Wind, Sly Sturdy Blow, Attack Defense Favor, and Time Pulse Arms, which is just the attack defense version of Time's Pulse Edge and Helm. Yeah, it's pretty nice stuff. I already went over Favor, so if you want to give me more watch time, you can skip to this part of the video. I think all of his stuff being attack and defense leaning makes it less splashable, but even then, Favor is just a really good skill, so I'm sure you'll find uses for any potential extra copies if applicable. And yeah, good fodder, so good, yum yum yum. Why did I say that? And other than that, that sure is Chrom. I actually really like what he does, and I think he has a lot of potential to be really strong even outside of combat. His reposition could go a long way for so many units because of the bonus transferring, and I'm actually interested in seeing where it takes him. Only time will really tell with it, but if they add more selfish bonuses into the game, then it'll probably end up aging really well. At least longer than the average unit. And then there's Chaholin. I never learned how to pronounce it. And I'm genuinely so shocked they actually gave this dude an ult. He just got his base version this year, and I was already surprised about that. This is very welcomed. Chug Drill content is also just based and welcomed. I'll take any. Let's see. Cahulan comes with Arena Axe Plus, which inflicts speed and defense penalties, speed shackle, and defense shackle on the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of the target at the start of the turn and after taking an action. It grants some stats during combat, 20% speed-based true damage, and 20% speed-based true damage reduction. That's a pretty sick inheritable weapon. The combat stuff is standard generic stuff, which is fine, but I think the shackle support is what really sells it for me. Start of turn and after action speed and defense shackle is really nice support, and if we ever get attack risk shackle in the future, it'll make for a really solid stat swings. Honestly, I think inheritable weapons from seasonal banners this year have just been really great overall. Most of them really offered or continue to offer a lot of great avenues for units that were struggling before that point. Well, except for the Summer 2 weapons, but, you know, they're doing fine regardless. The added support of speed and defense shackle really did sell it for me, though. Cahulan also comes with Luna, Times Pulse 3, and Attack Speed Spiked Wall, which is not too bad. Honestly, I kind of like Times Pulse 3 the most here, but I'd hardly call Spiked Wall a bad skill. Even if it's not the go-to B slot for melee infantry these days, I'll always take Times Pulse pre-fodder whenever possible. They just print way too many of those skills. Still, I'm glad they started to print tier 4 skills on seasonal demotes this year, and they've all been pretty good so far. Thanks for that, IS. Keep it up. And keep attack defense wild. Don't reprint that one again, thanks. And other than that, that sure is this dude. There's really only so much that can be said about generic, but for what it's worth, arch rival melee infantry aren't even that bad right now. I think if you got him the right fodder, he could put in a decent amount of work. only a decent amount, maybe not much beyond that. And last we have Fur and Carla, and I'm sorta surprised they didn't do this one sooner. Not that either of them were really starving, but family pairings for duos and harmonics really feel easy to print, and it's one that I figured would have happened by now. Still, it's nice to see that they did do it. I really do have a soft spot for these types of duos and harmonics. Let's see. Fur comes with Princess's Edge, which is a slaying sword that grants a special jump of 2 at the start of the turn, inflicts speed and defense penalties, discord, speed shackle, and defense shackle on the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of the target at the start of the turn and after taking an action. Grants a bunch of stats during combat, true damage based on the amount of active bonuses and penalties on the target and nearby foes, which is uncapped similar to that of Baby Camilla and Hrestfelger, 20% speed-based true damage reduction, full no follow-up, and breath during combat. On top of a harmonic bound that grants Resonance Blades and 2 special jumps to herself and any ally from Binding Blade and Blazing Sword, as well as an effect that allows her to trigger once per turn effects twice. Yep, that's a kit. Her weapon is pretty straightforward, but effective. Good debuff support, solid nuking capabilities, special jumps, unlimited true damage scaling. She's got plenty and more to work with. That said, the harmonic button is probably the most interesting thing in her kit, to be quite H. Once per turn effects becoming twice per turn is awesome, and it's not the same one that's limited to special damage reduction either, seeing as she takes 3 actions in the trailer. Double Gale Force is pretty cool, as someone who hasn't seen 20 other units do the same thing for several years in a row. Although, given that her button applies to every single once per turn effect, there could be more room for other skills down the line. I'm not sure if there are other things she has access to at the moment that can apply in this case, but even if there isn't, 2 Gale Forces with her unlimited true damage scaling is already pretty good. Honestly, this would have been really cool if this also worked with allies from Binding Blade and Blazing Sword. Imagine allowing Emblem Lin or Lin Ring units to work twice per turn, or Legendary Fae having 2 miracles per turn. Never mind, it would not have been really cool. Fur also comes with Blue Skies, Potent Assault, Momentum 4, Attack Speed Outcry Dole, and a brand new special in Gale Force Miss, which is just Gale Force with 40% special damage reduction that neither Mist can use. Yeah, for some reason the special is cavalry and flyer melee exclusive, barring dragons of course, which is really weird, although it's not like it would have applied to Mist regardless. It's not that much of an upgrade to where I could see it needing the restriction, but it's honestly whatever. The special is fine, but it's also not so crazy that you really need it. That said, it will never not be helpful for some units because it's a free source of damage reduction, but otherwise the rest of the fodder is pretty splashable for flyers and cavalry, and it's really good fodder at that, so if you don't care for them in the slightest, then why would you summon for her? And other than that, that sure is Fur and Carla. I do think the uncapped true damage is what's really saving them here, but I don't think it would have called them bad regardless. Being able to attack 3 times per herself in 1 turn is really good, even though that aspect is locked behind a button, which doesn't make it the most free, but her damage output is really high, so it's not as if she'll struggle on that front. Hopefully. Still, as far as Aetherraid's offense units go, I think she'll make for a good addition. And then there's the free stuff, and who doesn't like free stuff? This time around, we have Ogma, which is also pretty surprising, but he's a sword infantry, which means more inheritable swords. Ogma comes with Arena Sword Plus, which is Arena Axe Plus, but sword. It's a really nice inheritable weapon overall, and I'm glad we're getting more inheritable swords now. We've really been lacking options for a while. The rest of his inheritables aren't as good in Special Spiral and Attack Speed Oath, but it's fine enough. There's also the Sacred Seals and Infantry No Follow and Speed Defense Finish. Both of these seals are really nice overall. Another finish is always welcomed, and more No Follow-Up is pretty cool, even if it's limited to infantry. Overall, a lot of really nice free stuff this time around. Thanks for that, Faye. By the way, have you heard of Nintendo Music? You should totally download the app. Yep, do it. And now that we've gone over the brand new seasonal units, I think it's time we rank the banner on the line graph that may or may not be a line graph at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new seasonal banner has earned a 6 out of 10 on the line graph. We can live without another Lucina this year, I promise. And you may be wondering to yourself, should I remain in debt by going for these new units? And while I'm not a financial expert, I will say that when it comes to summoning on this banner, you could probably wait for now. I don't think this banner is bad by any means. In fact, I'd go as far as saying it's really, really good. Chrom, in my opinion, is the strongest unit on the banner, and he really does offer so much as one unit. A bunch of true damage, Canto 2, really strong debuffs, bonus manipulation on top of being a pretty solid nuke overall. I think it will last you a good while if you were to grab him. Mass Marth is also really solid on the basis of her support too. Future Witness is still really nice, but now it comes with dodge and foe penalty doubler, which are really nice statuses to have. And of course, her combat combat is pretty solid too, with all the true DR, brave, and infantry skill accessibility she has access to, so she's a solid enough pickup as well. For, well, definitely not the flashiest, doesn't seem that bad either. I don't think you'll get nearly as much mileage with her as other units, but she does hit really hard, and she does seem like she's going to have a good enough niche in Aether raids. And Kahulin is a really nice team mode. He has nice stuff. I can't really be upset about it. I can't say the banner is bad by any means, but I also don't think it's so imperative for you to summon on it either. We have an emblem at the end of the month most likely, and I think prioritizing that will be the better move. That said, we really don't know what it will be, so if you'd rather wait and see first, I think that's the best way to go about it. There's still the T banner for less than a day after this video comes out. I guess there's not really much else besides that at the moment, but I would probably wait and see what's coming up first, especially since the seasonal banner is going to be around for an entire month. There's no real reason to rush out and summon TBH, 2BH, to be quite H. Also, did you know about Nintendo Music? You should really consider downloading the app.